Thank you for attending today's episode of Leadership in Times of Crisis. We are living through a global crisis unlike any other in recent times. What is needed now are great leaders, leaders who will help us overcome our fear, our laziness, our limitations, our selfishness, our weakness for us to improve, work harder on things that we ordinarily would do on our own. In this webinar series, Leadership Types of Crisis, I'll be inviting leading global experts on leadership to share what makes a leader a great leader. And in today's topic, Trust to Work with a Generous Purpose, I've invited Dr. Angela Dick, co-founder and former CEO of Transman, commonly known as the Lioness of Africa. So thank you, Angela, for taking this time for being my guest on leadership in times of crisis. Thank you.
Only a very great pleasure, Suresh. Honestly, it's an honor to be invited. Thank you.
So great, thank you. So can you please share with the audience what inspired you from being a school teacher into starting a temporary employment business in South Africa in 1983?
Suresh, it's a very long story, and you must
Please
not
share.
laugh because I was thinking about it myself the other day, and I thought, you know what? I suddenly recognized that at the age of 3, I wanted to help people, and I never thought about it before. And the reason why I say that, and this is a very personal thing, is that my mother was in hospital. And I didn't know that she was actually about to pass away. And my father took me to go and visit her. And because she had 2 visitors, myself and my dad, there was a little old lady next door, in the bed right next door, who didn't have any visitors. And I felt so sorry for her, age 3, that I went to visit her. So she had a visitor. And I realized that it was my first real understanding that somebody needed help. And that's really, I think, where it started from. And what happened was that obviously over the years, I grew up in a very sheltered environment to a large degree because I grew up in the appalling era of apartheid in South Africa. And I never thought anybody was any different from anyone else. I just thought everybody was the same. And because my father ran his own business and I was 3 years old when my mother passed away, he had to send me to school. And he sent me to the convent schools in Durban, and they were the only schools in the country at that time that were multiracial schools. So I was in a class of 60-odd children of all sizes, shapes, sorts, you name it, every different color under the sun you can think of. And I just never thought there was anything wrong at all. And in fact, the age of 4 and 5 years old, I was going off into Chatsworth to go and stay with one of my best friends, who was a little Indian girl, who right now, by the way, is a professor emeritus at Canada University. How's that? In Vancouver, yeah. So what happened was that obviously in training to be a teacher, because I want to help people, I want to see things happen, I like to see people reach their potential. I was then transferred through to the Reef, to Gauteng. And for the very first time in my life, I thought, more training teachers, I thought, you know what, let me try sales. I know how to teach, I know how to persuade people to listen. Maybe sales would be a good thing for me to go into. And I was very, very fortunate, and it's a very funny story actually, that 3M, that was a company at that particular point in time in Kempton Park area, invited me to be a sales exec for them. And I learned how to sell solid things that you could see, that you could touch, that you could feel. And in doing so, I was absolutely determined to make quite sure that the client that I wanted to see was definitely going to be there when I went to see them. So I used to go into the industrial areas very, very early in the morning, 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, to make quite sure that my first appointment was going to see me at 8 o'clock. And what I saw, what was happening in the industrial areas, quite frankly just shocked me to the core, because around me would be standing in front of factories and in front of businesses, anything between 5, 10, 50, 100 odd men generally from the local townships, desperate for work. And I used to walk amongst them and look at them and say, but why is this happening like this? I don't understand this. And I would see security guards or supervisors or whoever come out of that particular industries or that particular business's environment and come and stand at the gate and say, I need 3 people today. And then they would just look at these guys and say, no, I don't want you. You're too fat. No, you're too old. No, you gave me a lot of cheek yesterday. No, I'll take those 3. And there was no negotiation whatsoever in terms of any kind of a wage, any kind of hours of job was actually going to be, and any kind of standards that the individual concerned would bring these people inside. And I looked at them and I thought, but these people are desperate for work. They have families at home. They have to feed them. How can this be? And it was that horror and that revulsion I felt for the system at that time, which I thought to myself, I am a qualified teacher. I know how to make a sales call. I know that I can pick up the phone and phone any company, any person of any description, and ask for an appointment to see them about anything. And I looked at it from the potential client's point of view, and I thought, they've got no security in recognizing that a particular individual who perhaps worked very well for them would continue to come back the next day or the next day. They had no way of recognizing what experience they had, what potential they had, what certificates of service they might have. And I thought, I can meet 2 requirements, 2 needs at the same time. One, help the people who desperately needed that, because I could actually recruit them properly. I could screen them. I could put them through tests and so on, examine them and so on. And at the same time, I can get through to the manager of that particular company, and I can make that appointment, and I can take that individual and make that a secure employment for them long term. And that's how the whole thing started, because some of the stories I could tell you, you actually wouldn't believe. But I tell you, that to me has been my main focus in life, and it's incredibly rewarding. And I'm talking that from a heart perspective, if you understand that. That's how it started.
Thank you. It's impressive. So Transman has been responsible for placing over 3 million South African citizens into work. Your mission
Yes.
and the benefits you bring to so many underprivileged people surely earns you the title of a great leader. And besides this,
Don't be
numerous,
emotional, Suresh.
and besides this, the numerous awards that you have won during your career validate this as well. Like the South African Businesswoman of the Year Entrepreneur, Standard Bank Business Woman of the Year, Black Business Quarterly Most Outstanding Woman in Business. You were even the finalists with Ernest and Young Entrepreneur of the Year awards. The most influential woman in business and government in South Africa in the year 2007, 15, and 16. So that's impressive. And even you were part of advisory board of the First National Bank. You are the
Yes.
top 100 most influential women in emerging economies globally. You even won the Global Inspirational Woman in the Leadership Award, Global Women Leadership Hall of Fame 2016. You are like a goddess. That's
Oh
why
no,
we
come
call you
on,
the Lioness
Suresh.
of
No. I didn't
South
I
Africa.
didn't I didn't go looking for those awards. They just happened, honestly. I got a
But
surprise every time they
that's
gave
why
me
they give
one.
it to you.
Oh goodness. Yeah. Look, it was a great honor. Honestly, I was surprised every time. I'm thinking, well, I'm just doing what I do because I love what I do. And I want to help people, and I'm able to help them. And that to me is just incredible. One of the stories I am going to tell you just quickly, if you don't mind, is that I have someone within my organization who's been with me over 12 years, and he is at the second level of executives within the company, very, very senior, and he earns an exceptionally good salary. He's responsible for about 1,200 people. And when he first joined my company, now remember this is 12 years ago, when he first joined, I'll tell you what he was. He was a farm laborer. And because I recognized that he wanted to do better, I recognized that he had the potential, and he took advantage of all the opportunities that I gave him. And he proved he was responsible, that I was able to move him upwards, bit by bit by bit up the ladder. So today, he's a really, really well-recognized, superb leader in his own devices, and I'm thrilled to bits. And as I said, there's so many stories I can tell you, but that's probably one of my favorite ones.
Inspirational. Thank you. So, as COVID-19 tears its way through country after country, city after city, town after town, your company of 37 years of hard work was forced into liquidation. A company that was expected to earn 640 million rand in 2020, which is about 50 million US dollars. So, can you please share what happened?
I think what happened, Suresh, is that I have never particularly focused on a specific industry. As far as I'm concerned, every single job is an opportunity for somebody. Therefore, every single individual who came through the company had an opportunity in a different industry, in a different job category. There's something like probably about 28, 35,000 odd different job categories that I was providing at any one particular point in time. And in doing so, the obviously the nature of the different industries was very different. So you'd have the manufacturing environment, you'd have the construction industry, you would have the food industry, and so on and so forth. And of course, when the whole lockdown happened, we were actually looking at actually turning over roughly just under R1 billion that particular year. And what it did was literally take out almost the entire workforce, because obviously the clients who could use their services, they themselves had to close down, and that meant that it was a it was a stroke to the heart. It really, really was. And because we didn't have that many people working in essential services,
Internet's not perfect here, but we are back live, okay?
yeah, sure.
Just give it a minute so it streams back live. Just one more minute. Okay, so we are back in action. So sorry,
Right, thank
we
you.
missed saying, so you can continue.
Sorry, I forgot. Where did we actually disconnect, Suresh? I
I
wasn't sure.
think towards you were just sharing what happened, so you can start again,
Yes.
like what happened.
I think what happened was that with COVID hitting the whole of South Africa and the whole world, in fact, that naturally, because it is people that it was affecting, that with the very, very severe lockdown, literally hardly any company could actually operate. And unfortunately, that meant that all of the clients and all of the people that I was placing into that particular client base literally had to be sent home with no work. There was some what should I call it, some kind of recovery from the government in terms of being able to give the people some monies, but it actually meant that they literally couldn't survive very well at all. And that was a major problem for me. And as I said, once we managed to come out of it to some degree, obviously the whole a number of our clients had to close down, quite a number of them permanently, which was an absolute tragedy. And a number of the industries were so badly affected. Again, they also just basically lost too much. And obviously, in terms of that particular time, they weren't looking for any additional people who could actually run with various functions. They actually tried to re-employ their own permanent staff, which is perfectly understandable. And yeah, so where we were on our way to hopefully making just under the R1 billion revenue for that year, yeah, we were struck very, very badly and basically had to close down. But as I said, fortunately, I was able to place a number of my people in other areas and with other organizations that were a little bit better off than we were, and even some of my permanent staff, but certainly not everybody. And that basic, it does, it breaks my heart. It really does. But even today, I'm still trying to help people in so many different directions. I have so many people who contact me. I don't even know them, but I don't care. They have a problem, and I try to help. Always try to help.
Thank you for sharing that story. And overall, how did your employees react initially? Because obviously they just lost their jobs. What was their
Yeah.
reaction?
Complete shock. I think that was right throughout, not just only our company, but right throughout the whole country. And it wasn't something that anybody was actually expecting. And I think that some of them were obviously very, very down in terms of their depression. And there's not, you can do some things to help, but not always, because people have got to take a good hard look at themselves. What can they actually do to better their own situation? And it's something which one's got to be brutally honest with oneself and say, all right, look, I'm very good at this, and I'm not too good at that. And maybe there's a different way in which I can create an income for myself and for my family, and look at that. And if one can get assistance in doing that, then one should do it. But it isn't easy. And of course, everybody is not the same. I think that a lot of people have taken a huge knock in terms of their self-confidence and in terms of even their own family leadership. So yeah, but one's got to take a deep breath, count to 10, not to 3, count to 10. And as I said, take a good, hard, honest look at yourself and say, okay, what can I actually do about this? Stay calm. Always stay calm. Think carefully. And if you find you're getting yourself in an emotional mess, take a deep breath, count to 10 again. Go to sleep if you have to. Sleep's very good for this. Wake up. Take a good, strong cup of tea or coffee. Coffee generally gets everybody going. And think carefully about what you can do. And get your people in your family to help you, because sometimes you don't always see the faults in yourself, and you need to get criticism from other people to say, well, you don't do that very well. And yeah, you have to accept that honest criticism, provided it's honest, and again, what we were talking about, from somebody you can trust.
Thank you for that great wisdom, especially for the great leaders out there. This really helps in times of crisis. So,
uh,
have your priorities been reset?
I think that from my priority will always be to help people. I don't know what else I would want to do, to be absolutely honest with you. And I think that my priorities in terms of that is still number one. Number two, it's finding a different way of achieving success, relying upon the experience, relying upon the relationships to a large degree, relying upon the different types of industry which are out there. Because as I said earlier on, that one of the things which I'm always grateful for is that I did not focus on a particular industry, which means I've got a pretty good overview of pretty much all industries throughout the world, except maybe IT. You always have to tell me which button to press. Yeah, and I think that one's got to be, as I said, brutally honest. Redirect yourself. Do the things which you really think you can do well. And guess what? Keep on going. Don't ever, ever, ever give up. I don't believe in giving up. There's always another way to deal with a problem, as long as it's honest and it's true and it doesn't hurt anybody.
So, I can see that that's what you're doing to support yourself during this outbreak. Anything else you would like to share that's keeping you sane right now?
My family, my daughter,
What about
the
your
important
dogs?
people. Yeah, the important people in your life. Your relationships are critically important for the important people in your life, and that is always your family number one. Always, always. And if you can get them happy and content and also positive and looking forward to creating something either with you or without you, whichever is best for them, that's very, very important. Confidence is critical. Always. Always build confidence.
Thank you. One thing is for sure, great leaders trust themselves, which I can see you trust yourself.
Yeah.
And trust is a fascinating thing. You can't see it, but the presence is the key to success. And this is true both in our personal and professional lives, like how you've shared it. And in most of the failed marriages and business relations I have seen, a lack of trust has been a major part of the problem. So, how does trust affect you personally and your business?
Trust to me is absolutely critical. And I've always trusted the people around me and the people that I deal with. You have to show me that you're not trustworthy before I lose trust in you. And the easiest way in which to see it is not to look at what people say, not to look at what the fancy positions they may or may not hold, but what their actions are. And if you look at their actions and you understand truly, you've got to get to know that person very well or the people around you very well. Only then you actually really begin to know, you know what, maybe I should not trust this particular individual or that particular group of people. And you must never, ever be afraid either. One's got to always be courageous. It doesn't matter what is facing you, always be courageous. I'll never forget one of the situations that I faced early on when I first started the company was that there was a terrible strike in one of my clients' factories, and all his workers were up and down, etc. And obviously they terrorized mine, and I had to go in there and try and sort it out. So there's, you know how small I am. I'm just barely over 5 foot. I go into this plant, and there are all these guys all around me, all like 5'6" and 5'8" and 6 foot and so on. I was surrounded by, goodness, I don't even know how many of them, but I marched into the middle of all of them, and I stood there, and I looked up at the tallest one, and I said, "When you're quite finished, I'll talk to you." And there was dead silence. And then I marched outside. And about 10 minutes later, they all marched out after me and then spoke to me about whatever the issue was. Oh, yeah. You must never show fear, ever. Yeah. Nothing intimidates me, I must confess.
Thank you. So, how true is this statement for you today? The most important thing is to trust your inner instincts. Look at what you respect, and who you believe in.
Yeah. I think that's very important, Suresh. And I think that what I've said to you earlier in terms of understanding and getting to know your people, very important. And secondly, look at their actions, look at their behavior, not at what they say, not at what they write, but look at what they actually do. Then you will know who you can trust and who you cannot trust. And one's got to be wide awake, unfortunately, to people, and particularly in a time where things are not good, because things always go well, you know. But when things are not good, you've got to be very, very careful and assess exactly what is going on around you and look at those actions and look at the repercussions of those actions. It might not look like that particular individual has done something particularly bad, for argument's sake, but look at the ripple effect. And always remember, every single thing that one does, there is a ripple effect. Is that ripple effect going to be good, or is it going to be bad? And why is it bad? And who is it going to affect? And I always think, it's been my whole life, Suresh, people come first, always.
Thank you. So when thinking about trust, most people think it's in the context whether or not we think others are trustworthy. Like, do we trust our spouse or our boss? But I've come to see that it's difficult to trust someone who doesn't trust themselves. And that's also difficult to trust someone who doesn't trust you. So after the closure of Transman, Have you asked this question, what am I actually here for?
In terms of you asking the question of me, you know what? I'm still here to help. I'm still here to create success. I'm still here to make sure that those people who have potential and who want to succeed in life, if I can help them, I want to be able to do that. And that doesn't mean to say that I'm going to just carry on in the same old way as before. It means there are different opportunities, different things which are coming across into the horizon, all sorts of things that I haven't had time to even look at before. Because if you think about it, if you're running an organization which is almost turning over R1 billion a year and roughly almost 6,000 people out in many different industries right throughout the whole country and overseas too, by the way. And I wake up in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm at my computer, 10:30 at night, I leave my computer. And that's literally it. The whole day, you're focused on making quite sure that things happen the way they should be. And one critical thing that I've always, always done, and this thing it's blown my mind away on many instances. The last thing I do at night, I send out a message to every single one of my staff members. Everyone I contact every single day, last thing at night, and I call it Thought for the Day. And I send them a message from myself about whether something's disturbed me or something good that has happened. And it's not directed at a particular person. It's just something I'm thinking about in terms of the company, the country, the people, what is happening. And I find it absolutely astonishing that from all corners and from all different people on my staff would respond to me saying, I really needed to hear that today. And it just, it shows, because I like to reach out to them every single day. It's important for me. I want them to know I'm thinking of them and that they belong to me. They're part of my family. It's as simple as that. I can't hear you, Suresh. Sorry. I can't
Thought
hear
of the
him,
day
Bex.
to end the day. It's a great way forward. It makes you gratified for being who you are, and also those people you're recognizing their value they're adding, and not
Yes,
only in your
yes,
life but lives of others. So
yes.
now, what can you share? Like, what kind of positive learning that you've received from all this taking place right now?
I think the positive learning is that be true to yourself, have confidence in what you know you can do, and have confidence in having the ability to give out those opportunities as well to other people. Bring people close to you so that you can work with them. Not one of my members of staff has ever worked for me, Suresh. They've always worked with me. And that to me is the most critical thing. And if you can do something to help somebody, do it. Why not? You're helping somebody on their way. And I will continue to do that for the rest of my life. I just like that.
Thank you for being the guardian angel of the world. So, whatever it is to do, keep doing it and be steady and determined to make it happen in your own environment. Trust yourself and
Always.
instincts, and don't let anyone tell you you're not good enough, because you are. That's what you had said in the previous part. So, it's amazing that these are the values that you live by. But then there are also leaders that trust themselves too much. That is, that they have much more faith in their own experience, their skills and insights. They do everything. Following the kind of leader only is appealing if you are okay with not really having a voice in the process, simply being instructed what to do all the time. So, do you feel that's the right leadership model?
No, sorry. No, because you know what? You can learn from everybody. It doesn't matter what their walk of life is. It doesn't matter what job they're doing. It doesn't matter what the industry is, nothing. You can always learn something new and valuable from somebody else. To see something from another person's eyes and another person's experience and another person's understanding is critical. Otherwise, how can you lead people forward? You can't. You can be the most superior person in terms of training and engineering, let's say, for argument's sake. And I don't have anything against engineers. honestly. But for example, something of that nature. And don't forget about the people. They will see things that you don't see because you're so focused on whatever it is that you're looking at, you forget about all the other stuff. You've got to keep an open mind at all times, always. And some of the brightest ideas that I was able to put into the industry have come from the most amazing sources that you'd never expect it to come from. And that's important. It adds all the time.
Thank you. So let's get even deeper, Angela. So, what do you
Yes.
look up for inspiration or mentorship?
I think what I look for is, first of all, the individual concerned. I don't mind who it is or where it's from, is that they must genuinely want to learn. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they must ask questions. Whatever it is that I say, they must question me. Why are you saying that? Why do you think that? What is the reason behind it? The third thing is I want to be able to see that individual progress. Whether the progress is slow, whether it is fast, I don't mind, as long as I can see them progress. Very important. And if one can see that somebody genuinely wants to reach their potential, they sometimes don't always realize that they have potential. And I see potential in everybody for all sorts of things. And I think it's really, really important. And if, for example, they've chosen a particular route in life and maybe it's the wrong route or I think it's the wrong route, I'll tell them so, but very gently, and maybe pose them in a different direction.
So, who's your superhero or superheroine?
You know what, Suresh? Everybody, because everyone has got something to offer. And if you stop accepting the fact that people have not got anything to offer, you stop learning. Why stop learning? What's the point? I mean, you don't be an old fuddy duddy, you think you know everything. Do me a favor. Everyone's got something new to offer, something exciting, a different point of view. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm comfortable with everybody. They've all got something to teach me.
Thank you. So can you name a person who has had tremendous impact on you as being a leader?
Yes, that person is no longer alive. That person was my father. My father, and I'll say it very, very simply, was a man of honor. And if you can understand that, that's all you really need to know.
Thank you. So let's come to this. So, what is one decision you wish you didn't make during this pandemic?
Hmm. That's a difficult one, Suresh.
Take your
Very
time, no
hard.
rush. Take your time. Go
Sorry?
dig deeper. Count the 10, 9, 8, 7, and then come up with it.
The one decision I didn't make that I wish I hadn't made, I think it wasn't in terms of the overall security of the country, the overall security of companies, obviously, the overall security of people, which I understood, obviously, and I had to accept. I wasn't comfortable about it, but I had to accept it.
Thank you. So let's go on. What are the most important attributes of a successful leader, according to you?
I think one must always be courageous. I think you must always have a very clear sense of direction, and your clear sense of direction must be guided by the information that you have researched properly and with the input of your people in which you have or in who you have confidence. Because if you don't have that, and you must take your people with you, because if you don't take them with you, what kind of a leader are you? They must have confidence in you. They must respect your decisions. And they must believe that you're doing the right thing for them as well as the company. That's important to me.
Thank you. So, what is one thing that makes you most proud?
I think what I wanted to do, Suresh, was to leave a positive legacy behind in terms of Transman. And I honestly believe that I actually have done that in terms of being enabling 3 million of our South African citizens to find employment and to start them on the road to success. I can't always hold their hand all of the way. I do the best that I can, but it is up to them too to take advantage and actually use that opportunity to prove themselves and become responsible themselves in taking that opportunity. And that to me, I am proud of it in many different ways. I like to think I've made a difference, a positive difference in those people's lives. That I am proud of, yes.
Thank you. So, let's ask this one now. What makes you most proud? Or have I not asked? Wait. Okay, let's skip that question. Let's come to this one. What is the most important risk you took and why?
What is the most important, sorry?
Most important risk you took and why?
I think the most important risk that I took was starting the company when my when my fourth child was 4 days old. And in doing that, not having the finance and not really understanding the labor market as it was in those days at all, and having to sell furniture and carpets and all sorts of stuff to put fuel into the motor vehicle so I could get to work. I think that was a pretty heavy risk, but I was determined. And once I started to get into the industry, and I was always glad that I started off in the motor transport industry, okay, the road freight industry. I suddenly realized along the way, because I wasn't sure how people should be paid and what benefits they should have and so on and so forth. You would laugh at some of the experiences that I've actually had. Really, I was doing things over correctly because I didn't know any better at that time. But one of the things which I suddenly realized once was that, hang on a second, I used to have a couple of hundred people in this particular client, and all of a sudden, I didn't have any people anymore. And why was that? And I went and investigated that, and I found that there was a competitor who was working under an old Labor Act, and they weren't paying the people the rates that I was paying them. Obviously, they're paying them less and without the benefits. So I looked at this and I thought, but that's not fair, because I was paying according to the bargaining council, even though they didn't accommodate us in those days. So I thought, no, damn it all. I believe that these people should be paid what people in the industry are paid and what their benefits should be, and that therefore the client should do that. So I went and I wrote a letter to every single bargaining council in the country, and I went and I took all the bargaining councils to court, and I demanded a declaratory order from the courts to say that if any person was placed in a particular industry by any agent, like myself, for example, that person would have to earn the same amount of money and receive the same amount of benefits that people in that industry earned, nothing less. And guess what? The court ruled in my favor, and I changed South African labor law. And that to me was a great triumph, because coming from that, looking at that whole abusive relationship that I spoke to you about before, I thought, but it's wrong. You can't, if a person's a code 14 driver, for argument's sake, and they're supposed to be earning 50 Rand an hour, Why are you paying somebody who's a code 14 driver on a temporary basis 20 Rand an hour? It's wrong. So I'm guilty of changing South African labor law.
So you're the one who increased the inflation in South Africa. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry, but I stopped the exploitation.
Thank you. So, how do you continue to grow and develop as a leader?
I think one's got to take a step back every time and take a good look at oneself and say, you know what, are you really doing the right thing? Do you really understand what it is that you're trying to achieve? What is it you're trying to achieve? Do I have confidence in myself in wanting to achieve these things? And am I doing the right thing for the people around me? Who can I take with me to actually benefit from this? And this is what one has to look at on an ongoing basis, I think, because you cannot possibly have this amazing opinion of yourself that thinks you're wonderful at all times, because you're not. You're a human being and you have faults like every human being. So one's got to take a good hard look every now and again and say, oh, okay, I didn't do that too well now. What did I do wrong? And how do I go about fixing it? You know? And if you've got to go and apologize to somebody for treating them badly or misunderstanding what they've said to you, you go and you do it. To me, it's important. People are people. We all make mistakes. I'm not perfect.
Thank you. So, how are you aligning yourself with your current mission, or let's say your current vision with your mission?
I think there's many things that I'm looking at. One of the things which I have realized is that in terms of the smaller companies who are just starting up and companies who maybe are just beginning to make their way into industry, I like to encourage entrepreneurs. There's a lot that I can offer, not only in terms of the labor legislation, obviously, because I know that backwards, as you can imagine, but that there are many things in helping them actually establish themselves from a business perspective. So I'm looking not only from the labor perspective and the business perspective, helping them, giving them some guidance, but also very, very strongly in terms of how to present themselves from a sales perspective, how to encourage them and how to get their message across in terms of whatever their product or their service is. Because that is where many, many companies, the smaller ones particularly, cannot afford very fancy sort of PR and marketing companies and so on and so forth, and don't understand the true power, for example, of Facebook, of LinkedIn, and all the social media platforms. And that is where you can give me pretty much anything, Suresh. I'll find out about it. I'll learn about it, and guess what? I'll sell it to you, no problem whatsoever. And that's where I'm happy to help smaller companies get going. And that's where I'm thinking that I'm going to be heading. Yeah, on that basis.
So, thank you. So, how you are generating these great ideas?
I beg your pardon?
I said, how are you generating these great ideas?
I think. And I look at my experience and I look around me at what is going on. And I see where companies are not doing all that well because they're not presenting themselves properly and they haven't given thought. Well, put it this way, they have given thought, but because perhaps they might be technical people, they're not understanding how to address that information through to potential clients who would want to use their services and whatever those services are. And there's a lot that I'm very lucky to have in terms of my background, again, from a, again, I know it sounds odd, but from a very heavily artistic background, that I can make advertising very impactful and make quite sure that whoever it is who's looking at whatever the product might be want to sell it, want to buy it. And that's important for me, which means that leads you to success ultimately.
Thank you. So, what are the most important traits to look for when you are hiring a new employee, when you start again?
I think the most important trait is that obviously one has to look at the skill set first of all, otherwise, or the skill set might not be 100% perfect, but if you have an ability to help that individual learn additional skills and reach further, fine. That is not a problem whatsoever. I think the most important thing is the person wants to work. Because if they want to work, They want to be successful, and you can pick that up very, very easily. That's a person I want with me.
So success follows success.
Yeah. It's called determination and not giving up.
Great, thank you. So these are the traits that you will be looking at also when you want to promote somebody, I presume.
Absolutely. Yeah. People who are prepared to take responsibility. And that's a very, very important feature. And what's also very important for me is people make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Therefore, own up when you've made a mistake, accept the fact you've made a mistake, ask how to fix the mistake, fix it, move on, and don't do it again. To me, that's quite simple. And those are the people I want to work with.
So from your current experiment of Transman, what are you going to change the next one if ever it starts?
What do you mean, whenever it starts?
Oh,
It's
it will start
starting,
soon.
don't you
Okay,
worry.
okay. Got it.
Definitely. No, I think probably not much from the character perspective of the people that I would want on board, and probably not much more from the skills perspective. But I think the responsibility and the honesty of an individual is critical, because if you do not have that honest person with you who's prepared to accept that they themselves are not perfect and don't know everything, just like you don't, it's difficult to actually work with people who think they're perfect, to be honest with you. It really, really is. And I shy away from people who think they're perfect because none of us are. Even though my name is Angela and my mother named me after an angel, my hair is a bit rusty, I promise you.
That's great. Thank you. So, what is the most dangerous trait in a leader's career?
Most dangerous trait, to be self satisfied and think that you're perfect. And think that whatever you announce is absolutely 100% perfect and everybody will do as you tell them to do. Because if you've got a closed mind, you're not going to succeed ultimately. You have to have that open mind. You've got to.
Thank you. So, what is one characteristic that you believe every leader should possess right now?
I think that the one characteristic that every leader should have is they must be honest with themselves. If you don't recognize yourself, what faults you have, what the good things are and what the bad things are, then you become overconfident. And then you become full of yourself. And before you know it, your own people start to disrespect you because they can quickly suss out that you're not perfect and you don't know everything.
Thank you. That's a great advice. So, now what advice would you give someone who's just going into leadership position for the first time?
I think they must take a very careful look and have a careful understanding about why they are in that position. What was the real reason for them being in that position? Did they just create that position for themselves? Or was there a board maybe who selected them for that reason? What is it that triggered that leadership position in that person? And they again need to be honest with themselves. Are they comfortable themselves with that reason that they were selected? Because maybe that reason was not the reason they should have been selected. And you've got to be very self-critical and honest with yourself. And taking that forward, in understanding that, what are you going to do if you know personally that you're not that kind of leader? What are you going to do about it? And that's a decision that every person's got to look very, very carefully at themselves and say, okay, I'm not good at this. They chose me for this. I'm not the correct choice. What do I do about it? What can I learn from it? How can I change it? Is this something that I really, really want? Because maybe you're setting yourself up for failure.
Exactly.
Because the moment your people don't trust you, you're lost.
Correct. Absolutely. And this is what's very important for what leaders are doing right now. Am I even ready to take this responsibility? If not, just say, I can't do it right now. Please give it to someone who is capable of taking
Yes.
care of the needs.
100% agreed. Yeah.
Thank you. So, what are three books you would recommend for someone to read right now, since we have so much more
Three.
time?
Suresh, how can you ask me questions like that? There are
Easy
there are
question
so
is,
many things.
yeah,
Sorry.
there's so many great books out there. I'm sure you must have picked up a few, or you're planning to read even. Those are good to share.
Suresh, you're being very naughty asking me that question. Remember what I said to you? I work from 7 in the morning till 10:30 at night. When do I get a chance to read books?
Okay, all right. So she's not going to share her favorite books. What about my book?
Oh, honestly, Suresh, send me one and I'll read it.
Okay, thank you.
No, no, but seriously, I think that there's a lot of introspection's got to come, and you have to understand yourself. I know what you can and what you can't do. And I think that programs such as you, as you're running right now, the leadership in times of crisis, I think this is of infinite value because you're getting so many different perspectives and different messages. And each person's got to make up for themselves what they really, really believe in, what they can achieve, and whether they want that responsibility or not. I'm prepared to accept responsibility, no problem. If I make a mistake, I expect you to tell me I've made a mistake, but tell me why, and I'll learn from it. No problem.
Thank you. I wish all leaders thought like you, worked like you, and behaved like you. But it's hard to find great leaders like you who understand that sometimes it's best to listen and follow
Mm,
versus only have people follow them all the time.
absolutely.
So, is there any more advice you would like to share, Angela, that I might have not asked you? You think they definitely need it, otherwise they are going to fail as leaders?
I think one of the things that you've just said now, Suresh, is very important, is that it's critical for leaders to listen. Because if you don't listen, how come you're so perfect? You're not. Nobody's perfect. And if you don't listen, guess what? Your people will stop actually talking to you and they will stop listening to you. Then what?
Thank you. So, one of the greatest traits in being a great leader is the ability to share without expectation. If today's
Yes.
webinar has helped you generate more hope, optimism, and provided you with advanced tools for making a difference as a leader, please share this video with friends and colleagues. And thank you, Angela, for being my guest today.
Thank you for inviting me, Florette. Thank you.
And I would love to see you all next week on episode 4. And we have another great speaker. Her name is Hema Was. See you next week. I don't want to tell you that much right now.
Thank you, Suresh.